All right, welcome everyone to this lovely Thursday afternoon. Hope all of you are reasonably awake after a couple of days on the show. I know it's getting hard for me, but it's like I hope we can power through this together. My name is Gerald Bichelt. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Sprinklr. Sprinklr, just as a background, we're, oh my gosh, my marketing people are going to kill me right now. It's like we're a social media management company. What we'd actually do is we do customer experience management. So this is social media, this is marketing, research, advertising, but also a lot of call center as a service. So we really focus on it's like the customer journey, the consumer journey as they interact with our brands. There's a lot of data that is very public, but there's also a lot of data that is fairly private in one-on-one conversations. I have with me Sonal, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. I'm Sonal, I'm Director of GRC at Sprinklr. So under what I do essentially is security governance, security risk management, and then a lot of the big compliances for the company. So SOC, HIPAA, PCI, FedRAMP, ISO, and then we continue to add more.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sonal and I have a different presentation style. You'll find out during the presentation, I guess. So let's go quickly. It's like what we want to talk about. It's like this is not going to be a super technical discussion. It's like we're not going to be going deeper into it's like what are you doing about identity governance. We really want to focus, if you think about people, process, technology, on people and process. Because from our experience, it's like if you roll out a comprehensive identity governance program, not so much like identity access management or single sign-on, but governance program, you really end up running in a lot of organizational issues. And we wanted to highlight those in this kind of talk, because I do think that those are the important ones to solve as you embark on that journey. It's like you can roll out a lot of technologies, you can do a lot of things along those lines, but at the end of the day, if you are not really getting the right level of support with the right level of justifications on why you need that, you end up being in a place where you're trying to grow this grassroots, but it's not really coming up because you can't get everyone on board. So we'll talk about where we started. We talk about some of the challenges we faced. We talk about how we used our risk assessment in order to really get our message across to the different kind of stakeholders in the company, and then how we ultimately jump-started the program, cut it up into many, many phases that are still ongoing, and where we want to take this in the future. So please embark with us on this wonderful journey, which started with the lack of IAM governance. It's like we really had no good way of dealing with this. We had a classical kind of termination process that probably every company has at some point in time, where HR sends out a couple of emails and says, you know what, it's like these people need to be terminated, and hopefully some of them actually got terminated, which was fine. It's like for while we were a startup, but as we matured as a company, it's like this decentralized approach with really not good ownership across the board, without any kind of like standardized policies and processes, resulted in a very, very weak weak access management and ultimate identity governance kind of environment. It was super manual, so it required a lot of overhead, a lot of like interactions between different parties. And if somebody was on vacations, like this could mean that actually the respective user was not deprovisioned, which we found through a bunch of incidents like over the years. It's like that happened a couple of times. We had poor password management practices. We had lack of strong or consistent strong authentication. So multi-factor was deployed in some of the most critical systems, but not necessarily consistently. We had a lot of issues about third and fourth party systems, and what that means I'll talk about a little bit more about when we go into is like how this worked from a customer perspective versus like employee perspective, because as a SaaS company, it's like we're dealing with not only this internally but also externally. And at the end of the day, it's like it really was a fairly convoluted process with poor technologies and poor processes that really didn't help. So I'm going to go next.
So essentially, like Jerry said, when we came in, we're trying to identify what our access management process is looking like. So as he mentioned, it was manual and decentralized. So from a user perspective, a user would have to essentially go find out who's the system administrator for a system, and it could be 5 different administrators within the same department because they're managing different systems. and then figuring out what the process was to get access. So no one was really following any standard. And then you would find people requesting access maybe just over an email. Maybe there was a ticket but no approvals. Maybe there was just a conversation. And then when people were leaving, we didn't really know how people were getting removed. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. And so from a security perspective, we're coming in, and then we find out, we have to now go and talk to every single system administrator and be like, what's your process, and how are you doing this, and doing a whole gap analysis. And then customers and auditors are coming to us, and we're finding incidents, and we're getting findings. So a lot of just quite messy processes and a lot of inefficiencies, just because we're going and doing this again and again and again across various people across the company.
So who has seen that in their respective organizations? There's more. It's like, don't lie. So I think I would argue that it's like a lot of companies have been really facing this. What made this kind of like give us twice the fun was the fact that we're also a SaaS vendor, right? So it's like we have all these kind of issues for internal systems, whether it's financial systems, the HRIS, whether it's other kind of like systems that people need access to, device identities, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those kind of things that I think everybody knows about. But now we also had the same kind of issue with regards to managing our platform, managing our user identities, sometimes our users as well. So the entire CIAM kind of thing was an issue. Privileged access to those kind of like customers' environments. So it's like if a support user comes in, they need sometimes to assume the role of the super user for that particular instance. How is that being logged? How is this being like tracked? It's like how are we doing the access certification and recertifications for that? And then fourth party systems. So anyone knows how Meta Business Manager works? All right, so you don't. So it's kind of fun. Because it's like at the end of the day, it's like if you want to integrate with Meta Business Manager, you need to have one Facebook account, or like one Meta account, right? But that also means it's like that you have to use your real name. Now, it's like your real name is usually your personal Facebook account or something like that. So it's like now we have people coming in, contractors on ours that work for us who are working on our customers' Meta Business Manager using their personal Facebook accounts. That's so awesome. It's like you have zero control over this. It's like, this is like literally zero, right? It's like you suddenly find in an incident, it's like 12 months after a particular contractor was left or stopped working for us, that they were still an active user in one of our customers' Meta Business Manager accounts, which is kind of like hard to explain, but it's like now start to think about it. It's like how does the user that we have on our side, the employee who's actually responsible for that contractor, communicate with the right people on our customer side to deprovision that particular user out of their Meta Business Manager, which does not work for single sign-on, and it requires you to use the joeyuser@gmail.com address that they're using for their personal Facebook accounts. Brilliant problem to have. So this was kind of like the situation as it was, and it's like as we found it throughout the years. And I think for everyone in the room here would go in as like, yeah, this is obvious, this needs to be quick solving, but it didn't really solve that quickly, Sonal, did it?
No. Yeah, so essentially we have this situation where it's all manual, decentralized, everyone's sort of focusing on their own system. They're looking at their own little world of, okay, well, we came in, we told them, well, you have to fix this, follow a process, but they're still only looking at their own system. So at the end of the day, we were like, well, this is a company-wide and then also customer-facing sort of issue. Who's going to own this, right? So that was one of our bigger questions when we would meet is, well, is it going to be security? Everyone's got their day job already. Now, are we going to add more to their day job? This is not an addition to a day job, right? This is a whole program. And then just, where's the money going to come from? How are we going to make the case for it? Do we have a tool that we need to buy? And we know those are, they're not essentially cheap. Do we get more resources? Then there's also design problems within the systems. We need to basically redesign the roles and redesign how things work. So lot of discussions, a lot of questions that we were going through internally to figure out, okay, how do we move forward? How do we make a case? Because this is not one of those issues that you fix. It's a whole program that you have to develop and move forward with.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that we had to figure out is like, how can we actually communicate this across the company? Because at the end of the day, it's like we saw is like there was pushbacks, there was lack of interest in certain things, this is not really my problem, and it's like we got our stuff working. Oh, this is kind of cool. Entertainment, free entertainment. I love it. So it's like if you guys want to listen to the music for a moment, this is the commercial break, I guess. So I'll try. Is this me? No, this can't be me. Well, I don't know. It's like sometimes things happen, you know. All right, I guess it's stopped now. Anyways, so what we tried to really understand is like we were trying to look at this through a very much through a risk lens. And if you look at this at the like departmental level, or it's like the tactical level, like the individual IT admin or so, this is not a big problem. It's like they knew what their users were. It's like everything worked. It's like if you look a little bit higher up, it's like there were some issues with like from a department-wide perspective. It's like, was this really all done properly for all our support users? It's like whether onboarded or offboarded. But generally, it's like those people felt that they were in a pretty good shape. When we were starting to look at this from a company-wide perspective, though, it's like really adding up corporate IT. It's like adding our support department, adding our success department, adding the financial team that was working at this, adding the human resources issues, adding the back system management for the SaaS platform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those kind of like things together really added up. And there was really not a good synchronization between those different departments. Like I said before, it's like the termination process was basically an email being sent to a list and saying like, yeah, you got to get those people out. Was everybody on that termination list? All the different teams that were super decentralized? No, not always. It's like, so there's not consistently. People who did not consistently report back whether they actually did the job or not. It's like, and there was no incentive to also add to, or it's like to join this single sign-on kind of like environment for things like VPN VPN concentrators, et cetera, et cetera. So everything was managed decentrally. But which again, in by itself was okay. It's like for example, for the VPN concentrator, they had multi-factor authentication. They were like onboarding and offboarding users, but they didn't see how the lack of or how failures on their side could ultimately result in real company-wide issues. And moving from like looking at the individual kind of systems and the individual problems through the departments, ultimately to the enterprise level, that was really how we could demonstrate it's like there is a fundamental problem across the entirety of the company. This really had like significant implications then ultimately for a lot of things around our environments, like particularly when it comes to regulatory compliance, such as GDPR. It's like we do business in Europe, so congratulations, we're covered. Sarbanes-Oxley, we're a public company, but then also for our healthcare customers, it's like we sign BAAs, so we do become subject to the privacy and security rules for HIPAA. So all of those kind of things fall suddenly into our bucket, and that was really a problem. Now, it's like what we were able to do is really now to start thinking about is like how can we address the issue? So how do we jumpstart this for real? So the first step was really to start go in and start raise the issue with not only the IT admins at the low level, but really bring this effectively to the board. Now, there's a good fun thing that happened last year, particularly for anyone who's working in a public company, and that is that the SEC decided that security is actually important. It's like for the first time in a long time, it's like they actually heeded our words, and boards got very, very fickle last year. It's like when you talk to them about security-related issues. Like until then, it was like, yeah, it's like not too many words. It's like just keep them short, and it's like we don't want to read the slides, so it's like keep it away. Suddenly, in the middle of the year, it's like, why don't we have the data? It's like we need much more information, but don't use the long words, use the short words. It was a very interesting kind of process to adopting to their now very changed needs. But it's like this was also a good opportunity to really come in and say like, look, dear board, just like our audit committee in our case, we have some areas which are really important, and it's like we have actual risk for the company. This is the identity and access management is an actual risk that could harm our standing, could harm our investors, and you guys should be aware of that. Bringing this up there, obviously coordinating this prior with the respective executive leaders. You don't want to surprise them in the board meetings. It's like this usually career limiting. It's like, so we bring that up. But it's like they understood that this is now an issue. It's like, and now they started to ask their own questions, and that ultimately really drove home the point for our executive leaders across the different organizations that this is something that they cannot ignore. Once we had that, we dove deeper into investigating the situations. It's like what was really required, what exactly was happening from a joiners, movers, leavers perspective. It's like we needed to create a prioritized list of systems that we actually wanted to address, right? It's because you cannot do everything all at once, and needed to understand some of the architectural aspects that were going on. And then what?
Then essentially we had to come up with a plan. So we're doing all this investigation. Okay, now what are we going to do next? Do we have a PM? What's the program plan going to look like? Are we going to use an existing technology stack, or are we going to invest in a new one? So we did have an existing one that we went with. And then once we sort of came up with the plan and what are the systems we're going to move forward with, we did do an internal review. So essentially we had sort of like a steering committee that we built and reviewed internally. What are we going to address the low-hanging fruit first? Are we going to go do a POC? So just a lot of discussions internally. And we moved everything in phases. And the first phase, just like Jerry said already, that we basically did a lot of discovery, tried to understand the processes, tried to understand which systems we're going to use, come up with what will be our process going forward. And then in the next phase, we started chipping away at it. So we, like I said, we used our existing technology stack, said let's at least start, right? Let's get moving. We started with a POC. So we went with one system first, tested out the whole joiners, movers, levers through that. Then once that worked, then we added 3-4 more systems and then integrated with the joiners, movers, levers. And then in the next phase, we really focused on maturing the process, sort of building the foundation, looking at how we can automate things more than what we already had. So essentially, birthright access, access recertifications. We were doing a lot of manual recertifications. So can we do that in a tool versus doing it manually? So all those things. And then governance, adding more governance. As we were learning things, as we were testing things out with those systems onboarded already, we realized, okay, there were things that weren't working as well. So just adding more controls in place.
The fun thing there is, like, if I can just interrupt you for a second, is that we had all the tools already at hand. So everything, we didn't really need to buy anything new at that point in time. It's like everything was there. It's like in the kind of tooling that we had. Everything was ready to go. It's like we just did not have a good understanding of the overall architecture. We did not have a good understanding of what kind of processes we actually needed, and we did not have the buy-in to actually implement these. So it's like that's why I was saying at the beginning, this is not necessarily a technology problem. Technology does become important later on. It's like in order to make it more effective. Totally agree. But in order to really get started, it's like you need to spend most of the time on those other aspects. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially, where we are now, so we're nowhere close to being done. This is going to be and yearly process going to go on for a while. But we feel like we have, with the current systems integrated, a foundation in place, automation where we can, and then we're continuing to add maturity in the process. And the ideal situation, which we had shown before, is where one user is going to multiple system owners. Ideally, now at least with these 4 or 5 systems that we've already implemented, We can have the user going into a portal, looking through a menu of systems that they want access to, what kind of access. We built workflows. So if someone needs access, they can get approval through the workflows, or maybe it's birthright access. And so they, if someone is part of HR, they'll automatically get access to all the HR systems, at least the basic level of access. And then from our security perspective, we're coming in and I don't have to go and talk to 5 different people to figure out how they're provisioning and deprovisioning access. And then the other important thing is also the termination piece, which because we're integrated our HR system to this tool, anytime someone leaves, their access gets automatically removed. So we don't have to depend on manual and word of mouth sort of situations. And then this way because there's automation also in place, we do find lesser incidents. We have more comfort or more, we feel more comfort with not finding issues when auditors or customers come asking for reports.
Yep, totally. And it's like just from a security like performance perspective, the number of incidents that are related to some password spraying, attempted password spraying attacks, or other kind of like issues that were quite a few. It's like in the beginning when we started this, has gone down dramatically already with the little things that we've done. It's like just by really, it's like getting our ducks behind in one row. It's like making sure that we can actually use the kind of like tooling that we have, and now really start integrating this across the board. That alone was like enough to really slow down and stop in many ways. It's like a lot of the issues. So it's like I cannot overemphasize how important that particular aspect is of really understanding the overall design, or it's like understanding a design of a governance architecture for onboarding and offboarding in the company, and then getting everyone on board, right? So we'll continue to onboard systems at this point in time. So it's like we have agreements with some of our mission critical systems, such as Salesforce and NetSuite and all those kind of good fun things, which are already fully integrated in our single sign-on environment. So that's a yay. It's like, and that's why they came a little bit later. It's like because we're already able to at least cut off access. But like Sonal was saying, it's like we want to make the onboarding process smooth as well. So birthright access for sales, for example, is obviously different than birthright access for somebody in the technical ops team, right? What they need, the one side needs access to Salesforce and some of the other sales operational tools. The other side does need to be automatically provisioned in order to be able to get access to the back office, to the low-level systems for operations. And that really is like accelerates a lot of the tools across the board. It enhances our maturity significantly. It's like it allows us now to really focus on privileged access management as a key point, which again was not one of the like high risk issues for us, because it was a very contained problem, and while extremely manual, those people who were running it were really on top of it, because otherwise we would have had significant issues. But now we can really leverage the overall framework that we built and have that framework work on those kind of things as well. Do things like just-in-time provisioning, et cetera, in much more things, and really expand also this across our customer access and ultimately consumer access for their customers as well. So in summary, it's a huge undertaking. It takes a lot of talking. It's like this. I think this is much more talking than coding. This is much more programmatics than anything else. And the biggest risk that we saw, and that sometimes was mission creep. It's like, oh my God, it's like we have a problem here. Oh my God, we have another problem there. We really should move all of these into phase one. It's like that was really one of the big dangers. And having done this before and running into this kind of issues, I was kind of like taking the brakes. It's like, no, we're really just going to be foundations. But we have an issue over there. It's like, yeah, we'll solve that next quarter. It's like, let's get the basics first. So really focus on that. There's really something that helps you ultimately to mature. And then one thing that is often enough underappreciated is like when you do this, particularly from a leadership perspective, you have to highlight the wins. You really have to celebrate when you get some stuff done. It's like, because at the end of the day, everybody's working super hard. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but it's like for me, it's like if I look at a situation, it's like, oh my gosh, we haven't really achieved anything. And then I think back, well, what was it like 6 months ago? Oh my God, we have achieved so lot. But it's like that's something really important to celebrate there as well, because that keeps the teams motivated. With this, we thank you for your attention. It's like I think we kind of like didn't have time for. It's like if you have questions, ask us. But thank you, and have a good job.